Hello and welcome to the North Seattle College Art Gallery's virtual visiting artist lecture series. This is actually not virtual, it's live as well. We're thrilled to have artist and graphic designers Nikki Solemsaas with us today. I'm Amanda Knowles, the coordinator of the North Seattle College Art Gallery, and I teach printmaking and drawing in the art department at North. I'm lucky to work with Julie Graber, who's my assistant in the gallery and who's letting folks in here today and is doing stuff in the background. We're both supported by Selena, Alex, Emery, and Rory, the work study students in the gallery. Thought I would mention them by name. This is the third of our visiting artist lectures for the 2024-2025 school year. And we started these talks in 2020 when we needed to, and have well over 30 lectures available on the North Seattle College Art Gallery YouTube channel. For those of you taking part via Zoom, we have a live transcript available for those of you who want it. It can be turned on by clicking Show Subtitle button at the bottom of your screen. We start these lectures with land and labor acknowledgements. Our college leaders are working to sit down with area tribal leaders to discuss meaningful ways to acknowledge and the importance of what it means to be settlers, as well as occupiers, descendants, and inheritors of systems which sought to eradicate the original caretakers of this land. We are nothing without these folks, and we want to build a society where we are thoughtful about how we show that we stand in solidarity with the sovereignty, cultural heritage, and lives of Native, Indigenous, and First Nations peoples, support them in their actions, and have these words be meaningful. North Seattle College acknowledges that we occupy the lands of the Coast Salish people, the descendants of the first peoples of this region, a people whose cultures endure and are valued. Without this land and these cultures, we would not have access to this gathering, dialogue, and learning space. We take this moment to honor and thank the original caretakers of this land, their ancestors, and their descendants who are still here. We encourage participants here today to consider our responsibilities as we stand in solidarity with these people. We also pause to recognize and acknowledge the labor that created the United States and from which we all benefit. We remember that our nation is built on the labor of enslaved people who were forcibly brought to the United States from the African continent, and we recognize the continued contribution of their survivors. We acknowledge immigrant labor and recognize that voluntary forced and prison labor contribute to the building and ongoing maintenance of our nation. We acknowledge all unpaid caregiving labor. Additionally, we acknowledge the critical importance of the work towards racial equity that continues across this country in response to racial injustice and generations of structural racism against Black and Indigenous people and other communities of color. As we work to go from acknowledgement to deed, we know that it is not enough to just give a hollow acknowledgement and have to be sure that we're taking action to support each other in this time. Thank you. Just as a little plug, Countenance Contemporary Portraiture is the exhibition currently hanging in the North Seattle College Art Gallery. It's an incredible show, and we hope you all take some time to go and see it. Gallery hours are Monday through Thursdays, 11 to 5, and Fridays, 11 to 2. We have another virtual visiting artist lecture next quarter, but you'd have to keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, our website, and flyers around campus to figure out all of that. We also urge you to visit our website for more information. We will post links in the chat. We may or may not post links in the chat today. We're sort of running a little bit differently than we normally do. It's usually a quick click. You can sign up for emails and by contacting us at nscartgallery@northseattlecolleges.edu. I want to remind you that the North Seattle College Art Gallery is honored to have support from the college, student leadership, and from all of you here today. Thank you for attending these events and sharing them with people that you know who might enjoy them. Keep visiting the gallery, stopping in to say hello, and building the art community at North. Thank you. Okay, and on to the reason that we are all gathered here. Nikki Solemsaas is a Pacific Northwest native and Seattle-based creative with a background in design, photography, and fine arts. Her work is a celebration of nature, color, and the memorable places that shape her memories. Through her art, she seeks to capture the intersection of the real and the imagined, crafting visual stories that resonate both emotionally and visually. Nikki's pieces have been exhibited locally and abroad, including the famous Saatchi Gallery in London. She's also been featured in national campaigns, including Sun Chips, and in various Amazon projects. Whether through a billboard-sized painting or a UX design feature, Nikki's creations spark curiosity and bring fresh perspectives to familiar subjects. Her passion for community and storytelling shines through in every project she undertakes. Her art often draws inspiration from the landscapes of the Pacific Northwest, reflecting a deep connection to where she grew up. In addition to her work as an artist, Nikki is a minority owner of Coffee Sarap, a Filipino specialty coffee shop in Denver, Colorado, that has opened recently within the last couple months. Before I introduce you to Nikki, I'm going to bring Dr. Rachel over. Is that true? Are you coming up together?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, before we get started, my Aunt Rachel, who is the president of the college here, I guess you wanted to give me something, so I'll go ahead and let her.
Yes, just the proud auntie here.
Thank you. Love you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bo and Amanda, for inviting me to come and speak with you all today. But yeah, again, thank you guys so much for being here. I'm excited to be here for a few reasons. And again, one of being that I get to be one of the first people to speak in this auditorium. And of course on Zoom as well. I'm an artist, as mentioned, I am an artist, but I am also an alumni of the Seattle College system. I have a degree in graphic design from Seattle Central College. So I hope that kind of brings a little bit of a relatability to my talk today. And then again, of course, I just want to give a special shout out to my Tita Rachel, just because she recently became your president, and it's really not lost on me how cool it is, I think, that I get to speak at her college. So Tita Rachel, appreciate you, I love you, super proud of you. So in this hour, I'll kind of give you guys like a crash course on my journey and everything it took to kind of get here. This might not be your normal artist talk. I won't really go into like the nuances or any specific topical inspirations for each piece, but instead I'll kind of walk you through the evolution of kind of like my creative self while I work towards my goals to become a design professional. So yeah, hopefully as I share my story, you'll kind of see how my art is more of accumulation of my creative pursuits. Let's start. Chapter 1, dead end to design. So like many young people right out of high school, I went to a 4-year university without really knowing what it was that I wanted to do. It was a really great experience, but I graduated with a degree in humanities at the worst possible time to get a job. I initially wanted to work as a college, as a program advisor, a counselor, but nobody was hiring. So I ended up stuck in this dead-end job, one completely outside of my interests, and it was nothing more than a 9-to-5 grind. So after a while, I reached a breaking point where I thought, I can't keep doing this. I need to make a decision and do something different. And throughout my time at university, I had actually really gotten into photography. I was self-taught and always taking photos. And for a moment, I thought maybe I should go back to school for photography. But kind of in the back of my mind, I'd always had kind of an interest in graphic design. I love posters and logos and packaging and everything like that, but I never realized it was something I could actually pursue. One being that it wasn't offered at my previous school, and I just didn't think it was for me for some reason. I don't know, I was just like a really naive kind of lost kid back then, but the decision to kind of return to school was kind of a huge sigh of relief. It was like a moment that really propelled me into research mode. And so I started Googling graphic design schools in the Seattle area because I knew I wanted to move to Seattle. So I looked at options like SVC, the University of Washington, and Cornish College of the Arts, but they either lacked detailed information about post-graduation prospects or required another 4 years, or it was just too expensive. And, I'd already been to school for 4 years. I had student loans. I just didn't want to take on any more debt than was necessary. And I needed something shorter, more affordable, but yet still robust enough to give me an education I needed to become a graphic designer. And so it was around that time that I heard about the program at Seattle Central Community College, which is what it was called at the time. I knew from the beginning that it was different. It felt really legitimate and even exclusive, despite being a smaller program. Their website even provided metrics and like expected salary ranges and post-graduation hiring rates. The curriculum was clear and doable, and it really just held a promising future for me. It was a 2-year program with an admission process that required submitting a portfolio. It didn't have to be anything super specific. They just kind of wanted to see your creative side. And so I also went to their open house and found it really informative. They were really open and honest about what to expect, especially about it being a very intense 2-year program. Alumni also even came in during the open house and spoke to us about their time in school, their current roles, and how their education at Seattle Central was really invaluable. So after that, it was pretty easy. I was sold instantly. That spring, I went through the nerve-wracking process of submitting my portfolio. I didn't hear back right away, but when I did, I got in and I was absolutely ecstatic. I moved to Seattle and I started school in 2013. And so when I got into this school, they weren't kidding when they said it was intense. It felt like they were trying to fit in a 4-year curriculum into 2 years. There were classes every day from 9 a.m. to 2. And then you could expect at least 5 to 6 hours of homework every night, although mine was easily surpassed that every night. But it worked because the program focused less on theory and more on practical hard skills. It really equipped me with the essential design principles from typography, color theory to layout and branding. And it also introduced me to digital tools that would be crucial in my later roles as a visual/UX designer. So, and also the biggest thing was the hands-on experience in school from doing mock interviews, project presentations, whiteboard challenges, and then group critiques really prepared me for the fast evolving tech industry. And so from this, I couldn't find many pictures from this time period because my old Instagram account that I used for is no longer active, but I remember it just being one of the most mentally exhausting, but yet also really rewarding periods of my life. I became really close with my classmates as we worked really long hours every night, all heading towards the capstone of our 2-year program, which was our annual portfolio show. And that last quarter of the second year was dedicated to creating a portfolio of our work, which was then displayed at this show. This event wasn't just a celebration, it was instrumental in making connections. So industry professionals, designers, hiring managers, recruiters, and loved ones, of course, all attended. So while it wasn't super common to land a job immediately as a new grad, it was, again, really crucial for networking. And so at that show is actually when I met several recruiters, and one agency in particular really showed a great interest in representing me. So within weeks of this show, I had interviews lined up for several contract roles, and the most notable one was with Amazon's Kindle devices team. It was my first real interview ever in my life, and it really just set the stage for kind of everything that's followed. Chapter 2, amateur hour to Amazon happy hours. So for that interview, I had practiced my presentation until it felt natural, and I knew my portfolio inside and out. But still, stepping into a real-life interview was something entirely new. I prepared by researching the possible interview questions, getting advice from classmates, and consulting with my recruiter. I presented my work to the manager and another designer at the interview, and they asked really thoughtful questions about my design decisions, the inspirations behind my work, and how I tackled design challenges. I answered the questions with ease, and at the end, I reiterated that I was fresh out of school and that everything I was showing was essentially student work. But I really focused on explaining the inspiration and thought process behind each project. And personally, having experienced interviewing others since then, I know that many hiring managers just really want to see how you think and work through your decisions and your process. And I remember by the end of the interview, the manager telling me that he loved my energy and my storytelling. And even though I was just out of school, he told me he saw a lot of potential in me. And that moment felt really surreal, coming from a period of being really financially strapped and living in a 200 square foot apartment. I don't know, Teacher Rachel, if you remember that, but it was a very small apartment. And then I had just ended up landing a job at one of the world's biggest companies on one of my first tries. So it was just kind of a clear sign that hard work and persistence really pays off. And so that interview was really a turning point. I started on a contract role with Amazon as a hybrid visual and UX designer. And although I had very limited education in UX design, I was able to learn immensely on the job and gain mentors who helped me understand the field better. And for those that are unfamiliar, UX design, which is short for user experience, just focuses on how a product functions from end to end. And so that involves user research, wireframes, prototypes, information architecture, and interaction design. I don't want to go into my work at Amazon too much, but I will say that like every career, you have ups and downs, but overall, I really credit all my managers and teammates over the years that have provided me with really invaluable experience and on-the-job learning. You're never done learning, even after school. And so while I was there, I was able to change teams often and work on a variety of fun projects, including advertising for Kindle and being the lead designer for Kindle Unlimited and Prime Reading, and then getting to work on Prime Day and other projects like that. And again, I don't want to go into this work too much, but it's just a couple sample images from work I've done for all the various Kindle devices teams. So that's a quick overview of my work at Amazon, but I think that's like the perfect segue into the next chapter, chapter 3, when your 9 to 5 meets your 5 to 9, and that idea of balancing work and your passions. And while my day job at Amazon really provided the financial stability and professional satisfaction I needed, I never really let my passion for photography fade away. So with inspiration from trends like Daily 365 and Tommy Gawkinwan's portrait work, I launched into this side project that really just kind of evolved into a personal mission to capture a raw, unique story of individuals in a single portrait session. And so to date, I've photographed over 50 people across cities, states, and countries around the world. And my goal as a photographer has always been to tell a story and evoke a response. And the project grew organically just by word of mouth, or served as kind of a reminder that your steady 9 to 5 can really fuel your creative 5 to 9. And so that stable income gave me the freedom to experiment and pursue my art without constantly worrying about bills. I was also able to apply the skills I learned in school and on the job to my artistic style. So just basically being able to understand color theory and composition really provided me with the tools to capture images with greater balance and emotion. I began to understand how color can evoke feelings and how a careful arrangement of elements can really guide the viewer's eye. And so these are also skills that I would take on later into my paintings and my artwork. It's always just super fluid. All these skills are always interchangeable in any creative field you're in. And so with these skills, it not only helped me to take better photographs, but it also enabled me, again, to be able to tell a more compelling visual story. So in my photos, you can see that I really like to create focal points with dramatic backgrounds. For example, in the bottom right corner, you can notice my friend Anna with her striking green hair. And this was just a simple idea. Let's take a photo of you in front of this matching green wall. And then for my photo of my friend Natalie, who was with me in India for work, I had her stand in the middle of this like kind of vibrant yellow colonnade. And it was just like such an amazing place because as someone who loves color, India is just one of the most vibrant places I've ever been. And then even in the first photo, it's almost like the complete opposite. I love the drama of this almost dystopian dark setting in the background, and then contrasted with the vibrancy of Nikki's coat. And then the best part of this project is kind of the creative freedom and experimentation that it kind of gave me. And one of the best things about this project is nobody was paid for it. I wasn't paid for it. It was purely done out of passion. These portraits were set up and pitched by myself, where people gave me ideas, but I also suggested photo concepts and took candid snapshots or experimented with light bars, like my friend Casey in the first photo. And I love the freedom of creating without constraints. As an artist, you never really know what the final result of a concept will look like, but a lot of times the outcome is even better than you imagined. And then other times, I also just like taking photos of just interesting, unexpected places. So just, for instance, my friend Selena at a bar in Ballard, or my niece in her little fairy tent in her room, and I draped lights around her. Sometimes like the behind the scenes of these photos are just as interesting as the photos themselves. And included in this series are a lot of photographs that weren't intentional. We would just be hanging out and I would say, hey, again, I need to take your photo in front of this wall or by these posts. It's kind of a blend of that spontaneity and my technical skills, like understanding aperture, light exposure, and again, composition that really defines these images. And I have a really particular fondness for harmonious aesthetic and balanced lines and these dramatic focal points that really draw your eye. And so included in this is kind of this quick photo I took of my friend Claire in Copenhagen in the bottom left here. And it was just in front of this simple graded wall. And it just created this like kind of intense visual impact. And so while a lot of these images were captured on a whim, others were very, very intentional. For example, my friend Chelsea, who runs a fashion tech business, she really embraced this idea of a concept involving colorful smoke bombs and dramatic lighting. We even brought light bars to enhance the effect. It was just like a really crazy, fun idea that perfectly embodied the joy of like pursuing an idea or a vision. And at the same time, I always try to strive to capture the aesthetic or the mood of a person. I remember one day on like Whidbey Island, and I told my friend Emily, that she was perfect for this setting. Her natural style, the beautiful nature around her, and even her dog added a bit of a touch to the authenticity in the photo. And so with this project, it really fueled me for several years getting to do these portraits just whenever I had time or when people were asked to be involved. Until chapter 4, well, this was my lockdown renaissance. So in 2020, about 8 months into the lockdown, I know everybody, including myself, had probably exhausted all their new hobbies, puzzles, books, whatever. And then, of course, photography being one of my favorite things, I couldn't really go out and do it anymore. Of course, I could still go out and take photos, but taking photos of others just really wasn't a possibility at the time. So one of these new things I wanted to do was to pick up a paintbrush for the first time in a decade. When I was younger, I did paint a little bit, but I will be free to admit that it was not good. I never really thought of it in a serious way. I just kind of did it for fun or for a couple of friends who would ask for paintings. But I'll also be super honest with you guys that I didn't pursue it very much because I couldn't afford it. It was a pretty expensive hobby in terms of being able to afford the paints and the canvases and the brushes, especially the ones I wanted to use, which were a little bit higher quality. And compared to like taking photographs, where as a camera, it was digital, I could take as many photos as I wanted for free. So anyways, after picking up that paintbrush for the first time again, I didn't really know what I wanted to paint at first, but at the time I was really inspired because I had this beautiful view of the Olympic Mountains right outside my window. And of course, being from the Pacific Northwest, the Cascades are of course stunning. So from that, I just picked it up again and I wanted to do it in the terms of my style that I kind of had back then, which is more of kind of this paint by numbers kind of a method. And I just wanted a more abstract kind of realism to it. Although this painting doesn't have as much realism with that, but either way, I wanted to do these paintings. And when I would finish them, I always finished them with these stark black lines. It was just kind of always my signature. And because of that, that's actually how I came up with like my moniker at the time, which was paint inside the lines. So it just felt like it was perfect in terms of encapsulating my style. But either way, through this painting though, I just like really kicked off a lot of things for me. And it just kind of set off this obsession with me for painting again. The biggest blessing in disguise of the pandemic for me was that now I had all the time in the world without the guilt of doing other things or needing to be other places. And I got to be at home and paint as much as I wanted, of course, because I also worked remotely. And so my 9 to 5 definitely blurred a bit into my 5 to 9. But either way, again, it really just kicked off this period of time of me painting these big, bright paintings of places I traveled to or local places like going camping or Mount Pilchuck or even just the Kraken. And again, it was just showing how color is always the scene stealer and attention getter to all my paintings, just like in the rest of my work. I really leaned into this joy of creating work that felt whimsical and almost kind of childlike to me, but it still felt like me, if that makes sense. And so after this year of like really solid production in terms of just creating art, I actually was able to have my very first solo exhibition in Seattle. It was at Vermilion Art Gallery in Capitol Hill. And this wasn't like your normal exhibition. I wasn't invited or asked to be part of this gallery. But one of my goals that first year was to have my own solo show. And so I knew how hard it was to get into these galleries and things like that. And I didn't really want to wait around for opportunities to be invited, especially because I was brand new to art and the art scene. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to make this exhibition happen for myself because I knew my artwork was good. It may not be your normal traditional kind of artwork that you might see in more contemporary galleries probably, but it's just like another reason why I really enjoyed it. The gallery owner, whose name is Diana, I really, really bugged her and pursued her into talking to me and to see if I could even just rent her gallery space. And I really only wanted to rent it for one night just to have this show. Because again, it was this goal of mine. I felt like a visceral need to accomplish. And I wanted this to happen and to share my artwork. So I finally ended up getting her to agree to rent me this space. It wasn't very much money. And she actually ended up renting it to me for a whole weekend, which was great. Because again, I just had originally just wanted a day. So as I was actually planning for this space, I actually was able to add my photography that I had from the People Series project, which was very cool because it was just a digital album online at this point. And so being able to print out these portraits and have them in situ was just really cool to be able to see. And so because of the success of the first evening and actually that first weekend of the show, Diana, the gallery owner, actually invited me to stay for the entire month of the residency. And that was that was a pretty cool feeling of like validation and just kind of self-worth in terms of my artwork, that she loved my artwork enough and that the public seemed to have a good response to it, that she would invite me to do that. So I'll always be super grateful to her, because not only did she ask me to do that, she actually didn't ask for any commission, which is pretty unusual because most galleries ask for 30 to 40% commission. But she was also just kind of just really rooting me on. And so, Diana, if you ever see this ever in life, I just know I'm really grateful for you and you're giving me that opportunity. And so from those first few years of painting and from my presence online, I would actually gain invitations to art fairs and art shows. And a couple of those galleries that had discovered me over the internet, I was actually invited, were actually internationally in London for a couple of shows. And the first one being the Holy Art Gallery in Dalston, London. And it was there I was able to bring two pieces with me that were actively showing the change and evolution in my style. So during this time, I really started experimenting with trying different color palettes and getting crazier with my imagery and things like that. And so that was a pretty amazing thing to see the start of my style changing, which, I mean, it was very cool to be in these galleries, but it was also just really cool to be able to see it progressing and within such a short period of time. And then the second one, which is still the most crazy to me in terms of exhibitions, is I was invited to take part in a group exhibition at the world famous Saatchi Gallery in Chelsea in London. And this is one of the best, most modern contemporary art galleries like in the world. And to this day, I never thought in a million years I would get to be there or show there. And it just really made me realize that the more I've gone on throughout time, I'll get invited or get asked to be part of things. And it just really made it a point to kind of say yes to as many opportunities as I can. And from there, it just really opens up more and more opportunities for me as I go. So I think that's just one of my favorite things about being kind of like a multidisciplinary artist, is that I'm always changing, and that it's just a different side of me that I'm always trying to improve. As I progressed, I could see, again, my style evolving, whereas in the beginning, my artwork was very, Roy G. Biv colors and stark black lines. But with the added addition to my art process of using an iPad to illustrate my paintings first and experiment with colors without having to actually paint right away, it actually really helps in terms of streamlining, because before, sometimes my paintings would be like this thick because I would change my mind about colors and I wanted to redo them. So by being able to incorporate technology into your artwork is a big game changer. And I know sometimes that can be looked down upon, but I can see it completely the opposite. I think it's actually great in terms of being less wasteful with your supplies, because again, supplies are very expensive. And even though I can afford supplies now, I'm still very cognizant with how much these things cost in real life. So again, being able to incorporate technology has only helped me progress even further and faster than I thought I would. And so then at that point, again, I was also experimenting with a little bit of realism as part of my style, which included gradients and then just adding more dimension in general to my pieces. So it was just, again, a really wonderful period of time, these last several years, just really expanding my horizon in terms of being exposed to my personal painting methods and just seeing them mature. And so I know this is getting a little long, and I'll just kind of go through this a little quickly over the next few sections. But early on, one of my surprising accomplishments that really helped churn my continued obsession was that in December of 2021, it was about a year into painting, I was chosen by Queer Eye's Bobby Burke as a winner of the Sun Chips Be Your Own Wave competition. So not only did I win $10,000, but Sun Chips actually sponsored to have my artwork featured on billboards and murals all over the country. And these included places like New York, Nashville, and Dallas. And the best part about it was that the painting was actually, again, my very first painting, and it was enough to win this competition. So, and then the fact that this painting was displayed in front of tens of thousands of people all over this country it just still kind of blows my mind. It's, one of the coolest experiences. And again, just so early on into my career was just very exciting. And this is Bobby, of course, there. And then the billboards in New York, in Nashville, and Dallas. And just some more of those photos. And so, yeah, now I want to get into continuing on a little bit more about some of these accomplishments. And this next one is about the Space Needle Commission in 2022. So after discovering my work through my Etsy store, it was the guys actually from the Space Needle that invited me to create a custom commission piece for them. And this piece ended up turning into my own merch line, and I would become one of their featured artists in the Space Needle gift shop. And just to tell this super quick story, just because I think it's kind of humorous. So when I was initially on Zoom discussing this whole thing with them, I ended up telling them the story about how in 2011, I had actually reached out to them with the previous Space Needle painting I had done. And I'm not sure who it was at that time, but they were very, very polite. But then, they said no. And then it was just so funny because then to me, it went from being like, no, we're good, to them pursuing me. And it was just even funnier that I can't believe I told them this story, but they thought it was really funny too. So it just kind of, I think, just really shows you that it's like timing, like just sometimes things happen and you're kind of confused about it. You're like, what, why not? And then I think things sometimes just happen the way they should at the right time. So anyway, so I ended up actually creating 2 paintings for them that I really liked. And I liked the painting that they ended up choosing because it's, it's space. It's the Space Needle, which now is almost kind of cheesy to me now. But at the time, I thought it was really clever. And they didn't have any other kind of art like that. And it was just a really simple concept. So it was really fun. And then, so now I have my own merch line and I actually make royalties off of this every month. So please go buy my merch. And so, yeah, this is just a couple of the images. This is when I actually delivered the paintings to the Space Needle office. And they actually hung these up in the office for a while before my merch had come in. And then on the right, this is actually my merch at the Space Needle. So if you go there, you'll probably see my merch. Although I'm hoping that I can update into a new product line because this merch is several years older now. And my style's changed quite a bit since then. So I have new paintings that hopefully they can incorporate into like a new line for me. So we'll see, to be determined. And just a couple more photos. And so that brings me about to chapter 5, diversifying your dreams. And so this is going to be like the last section in terms of talking about my artwork. And what I mean by this is being open to new opportunities. This last project is probably one of the ones I'm most proud of because it really is just like a confluence of all my interests, which is art, design, and photography. And even more so too, because it's a business that was started by my cousin Chelsea and her best friend Hannah. And so Coffee Syrup is actually a specialty coffee shop inspired by Filipino flavors. In the beginning, I was just asked to design their logo, the branding, the menus, the look and feel, etc. And eventually I painted the mural that would also go up in their shop in Denver's Rhino District. So this project has been something that we've all been working on together for the last several years. And basically the entire time they've been open, and when they started as a mobile coffee cart, it's just been, again, just one of the most rewarding projects because I saw this project from inception to where it is now. And I remember creating the pitch deck for them, and they talked about their aspirations and things like that, and being able to open their own brick and mortar and having all these like kind of merch design, just like various things that we've designed. And it was all just very, again, aspirational. And to see where it is now, which is their own actual brick and mortar, is just super exciting. And then being able to kind of take this whole brand that we created together and apply it to a physical space is just kind of like a dream come true that I never thought I would have. And it's just like everything about the business is kind of like, I don't know, it's like a beautiful creation, I guess. And being able to put like a story to their vision is, again, it's just very rewarding to be part of. And so with that, I like this last image is to kind of show you the process. I've been getting into murals as well the last several years, and this is just kind of the process to show you of how I do it. So again, I'll illustrate the mural or the image on my iPad, and I'll apply, again, this paint by numbers. So it makes it really easy to pick out paint at the stores. And then when we transfer it to the walls, it's really easy to do it as a group project because the numbers correlate with the colors. So anybody can get involved with just having like their simple assigned paint colors. So yeah, this is kind of the end of most of my talk about my artwork, but now I just kind of want to bring it back to everyone else, back to you guys. If you are interested and if you want to be a designer, I'm just going to give you like a really quick overview of some of my advice, and this is the career you'd like to pursue. And I hope that some of this advice is like applicable to you, even if you don't want to be a designer. So yeah, it's first one is just take the leap. You know, you don't wait for the perfect moment if you're serious about pursuing design, or even if it's not design, if it's just a change, there's never going to be like the right moment. So just go for it, even if it means starting over. Do your research. I really thought it through about which program was best for me, especially in terms of goals and budget, and then just also reputation. Ask around, ask alumni, reach out to people on LinkedIn, ask them what their experiences were like in that school. Sometimes like, you know, it's just, you won't realize it's a perfect fit until you talk to people. The next one is survive design school. And then if you survive design school, you'll thrive in life. And again, it was like my first several years, even at Amazon, I always said, I was like, my group critiques were way harsher in school than any kind of feedback I ever got at work. So I knew I was good. I was like, okay, I was like, I survived that. I can survive anything else. It was brutal. And it really helps you also just being in school and having this group thought and feedback is just really good at helping you get a thicker skin, because you kind of really need it, especially if you want to go out in the real world and show your projects. And, you know, I think a lot of times you go into things being like, this is perfect, this is amazing. And then you get that reality check of being like, yeah, this is awful, this is not good. But then, you know, you take it with a grain of salt and you know that it's only helping you push your designs further or whatever it is you're sharing forward. So yeah, so that's just a good little tip there. If you go and you find it's like a really hard environment, just stick it through it. You'll be fine. To get started, it's, you know, the job market, I will be super honest, it's really oversaturated with designers right now, especially because like the knowledge of like our salaries and things like that. So right now might be a hard time to get like that full-time job right away. So I always encourage people to contract, which is what I did too, was to contract or intern to start, because to gain that experience is really, it's transformative for your career, because the important thing is to have it on your resume, whether it's a bigger company or any company. Having experience on your resume is super important. They don't necessarily look into how long or if it's contract, technically, they just want to see where you've worked. And then with that said, if you don't have a large portfolio, create your own work. If you want to highlight your skills or feel like your portfolio is lacking, just feel free to create your own projects. You know, you can go online and look up example briefs, and it's just a great way to get more work into your portfolios. And then also help, if you have a specific idea in mind and you haven't had the opportunity to, it's just like an opportunity to create what you want. And then the last thing is that creativity is a habit. It's not a skill. If you want to succeed at anything, you have to work for it. And like being talented only takes you so far. And so with that said, that kind of just brings me to my last thing I really want to leave with you guys. And it's this idea of not if, but when. And it's not really a phrase that I read somewhere, or like, I don't know, it's not, I didn't read it or anything like that. It just kind of came about from a conversation I had like a long time ago. And this was a conversation I had with a friend of mine that I've known since childhood. And just for some context, this person is like the smartest person like I've ever met in my life. Like from elementary school through high school, she just thrived. Everything always just seemed easy. Her name is Marin Scheip. And naturally, she ended up going to Stanford, and she's like now a well-known pediatric surgeon. But anyway, to this conversation, we were just at home visiting. She was at home taking a break from working on her master's from UW. And this was just me, of course, just bumming around at that time. And again, I was stuck in that dead-end job. And of course, we were just doing the normal chatting. And I asked her generally about school and like her eventual life plans and things like that. And the way she was telling me about her future, it was just such an interesting way to kind of look at it, because I myself I've never felt like I was very smart. I have ADHD. I have a hard time learning or understanding concepts like things in math or science, et cetera, et cetera. But with my friend and the way she was talking to me about how, you know, when she graduates, when she gets her master's, when she gets into AmeriCorps, and when she gets into med school, when she graduates med school, and then when she becomes a surgeon, it was just like the crazy part about that whole thing was that nothing she said about her plans was really that insane to me. It was actually very expected from her. But what struck me about that whole thing was that she never once used the word if. It just hit me because like I've always thought about my future. I always thought of it in like very conditional terms. It was like, if I pass school, if I get a job, blah, blah, blah. And so basically nothing I've ever done has come easy for me, except for maybe like, again, creative things. But even that I have to work, I have to discipline myself to finish paintings or projects or things like that. And so everything that about her plans, she made it sound like there was no other possibility. Everything she stated she was going to do, she did. And then I just think it really changed everything for me because I started to look at my own goals and aspirations. I was like, well, if you turn the things you want to do into more of a to-do list, as opposed to like a maybe someday list, it really is amazing for what it does for your mindset. So your goals just become achievable because you work towards them, and it becomes less of a maybe and more of like an inevitability. And I really think that itself is kind of the best advice I can give you in terms of goals. And it just really sets yourself up for success. So I think that I've seen that personally, of course, with my own goals around being a designer and then being an artist and what I've wanted to accomplish as an artist. It's always felt like this random snowball of success. But really, I was able to accomplish everything I've wanted to do because I made it happen. And it's easier said than done. I know that life circumstances get in the way sometimes. I still have a hard time too. I battle imposter syndrome right now, especially with like how quickly tech is always changing and I have to keeping up and things like that. But either way, it's not anything you can't work through and you're not fully capable of. And that's just kind of what I want for you all. Like if you are actively pursuing your future or thinking about it, like I'm super proud of you. And I'm just going to say that right now. I know this hasn't been your normal artist lecture. And I thank you all for having me here today, especially because I talked about myself so much, but I still hope you found some value in letting me tell you my story. So thank you guys. Thank you, everyone.
Other questions? Thank you so much.
Of course.
When you give your TED talk,
Yeah, I love that compliment.
I think the way you were able to condense your journey and all the different facets into just really it felt bite-sized and it felt doable. I feel very inspired. I'm teaching an art business
Oh, I love that.
right
Yeah.
now. And I would love your permission to share your tips.
Oh my God, please.
And
Yeah.
I'll credit you, of course.
Oh, of course. I love that.
But it's just such a positive, forward way of leading your life as an artist. And I think we all really relate to the idea of imposter syndrome and who needs the work. And is it, the world's on fire, but like, look over here, I'm making a painting.
Yeah.
Right.
That's essentially, it's been a coping mechanism a lot. So
okay.
Yeah.
I just wondered if you would talk a little bit about like how you're balancing your subject matter and like how you're finding focus in such a high time of distraction and confusion and exhaustion. Like what keeps you focused in the studio?
honestly, it's really hard currently. I had actually a period where I wasn't working for a little bit just because, life happens and I wasn't working. And even then I had kind of this time to be able to create, but it was hard because it's kind of like when you're kind of in this depressed or you're just not in the mood to create, you have to kind of pivot a little bit and just find anything that kind of brings you joy. And sometimes that's not always creating arts or taking photos. Sometimes it really is just reading a book. And so finding balance is kind of whatever you interpret that to be. And for me, it changes every day. Sometimes I'm pursuing again all my interests all at once, and other times I'm not pursuing it at all. And I think that's the best way, is that I've always felt this pressure to always be creating, always being doing something. And I think sometimes it's good to just step back and just, take a minute, and then you'll come back feeling more rejuvenated, if anything. So I always just say, just do what makes you happy. And if that's different day to day, then that's fine too.
That's interesting because it's, social media, we sort of see everything all at once and
Yeah.
we don't see the reality of it. So thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying that. Right.
Of course.
Are there other people? Thank you for the beautiful presentation.
Of course. Thank you, Bob.
And it's surprised that you have such a wide interest in like photography, graphic design, and paintings and murals. I
I have to ask questions. What's next? What is gonna be your next step?
Well,
What
maybe
is
an
your-
official TED Talk, officially now.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things I've been trying to figure out. For the last several years, again, I was always taking opportunities, and then creating my own. But then it's just gotten to a point lately, right now, I'm in the middle of, like I was saying, I feel this a bit of imposter syndrome. Right now, currently, I'm really learning this new technology. I'm in a brand new team at Amazon, and it's made me rethink a lot of things in terms of my career in tech, if I want to stay in tech, or if I want to move towards trying to be a working professional artist. And of course, with that, you have to kind of balance this idea of being like a steady paycheck or being creative all the time. And right now I'm trying to figure out, is there a way that I can change that? And one of the ideas I had was like, maybe I can open a coffee shop in Seattle. And that's kind of this new dream that I currently have, that hopefully in the next couple of years that I can do that, because it kind of would fulfill a lot of things for me. Like, it's this beautiful business I help kind of brand. And then I could also turn, so this is so selfish, turn it into my own personal art gallery. And so I'd never have to beg another art gallery to be part of it. I can just hang my own artwork up in this space, and then I could do the social media for it, and the marketing, the photography. So that's kind of my current dream, but I know my dreams tend to change every few weeks. But right now I feel very set on this idea of opening up this coffee shop in Seattle. So that, in a very small way, that's my next goal, I hope. So yes, please come to the coffee shop. That would be awesome. I'll let you guys know. So
If
yeah.
you're online, you might want to put in, questions if you have them in the chat. I think right now there's a lot of just really good, we'll send you that, the chat,
That's cute.
just really nice stuff. Question. Oh, there's a
Thank you, everyone in the chat.
What do you think about AI? What do you think about AI that would affect painting, digital design, and graphics?
I'm actually so glad somebody asked. I've thought about bringing this up in the presentation, but I could talk about it for hours. So I see it in a lot of good and bad ways, I guess. But like with anything, I don't know. I have a hard time with it because, again, with my ADHD, I actually use ChatGPT to help break down concepts for me in a really simplified way. It also really kind of helps me clean up copy and things like that, because sometimes just the way I write things is just so wonky sometimes. So I do see it as kind of like this valuable tool, but I have also been at times accused of using AI for my personal artwork. And it's really frustrating because AI is I think with people that aren't like literate in social media literacy is just, it's not always there. And it's frustrating when you see an image online and it's so clearly AI, but then you will have people online being like, oh, that's real. That's totally real. Or that's beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And it scares me a little bit because my style, I feel, could be taken from AI. And I will not lie, like, it terrifies the heck out of me. But unfortunately, like, that's the way the world's moving. And that's part of the things, even with my current job, we're really embracing AI to streamline a lot of processes. So basically, my opinion on that is just, I have a very mixed thoughts on it. I can see a lot of good with it, but I also see how it can really be detrimental to artists and the theft of artwork and, and things like that. So I at this moment, I guess I don't really know. It's not a great feeling, but it kind of is what it is. We can't really stop it at this point. So thank you for the question.
I also love that because isn't the wonkiness the thing that it makes us human, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I do the same thing every once in a while, right? And it feels like maybe they should, I don't know.
I know there should be it's actually really funny. This is actually, I've always said, like, one of my favorite things in the world is like anytime people praise you for your artwork or anything like that. I've always thought that was just like such an amazing compliment, because in essence, they're basically telling you that the way you see the world is beautiful, and AI like, and things like that is theft of that personal vision. And like being an artist is being like, this is how I interpret what I see, and here's the creation from my imagination. And so AI, it's just, it hurts. It almost hurts my feelings, because I'm just like, what is this machine that has taken all of these things and created whatever this is without the kind of the soul behind it. And so, yeah, it's very sad to me, if anything.
Without a personal one.
Yeah, exactly. The wonkiness is the best part. Yeah. Or especially the lines or anything, the imperfections. That's the other thing people do when they see my paintings online or in person. They're just like, oh, it's not as perfect as I thought it was. I was like, I hope so. It's not supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to see, the texture and things like that. So yeah. Mhm. Cool.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you
being
so much for
here.
having me.
It's really wonderful.